I just finished watching a documentary about the murder of Alice Ruggles, a British woman. Now, even in this documentary, it was made plain that this tragedy could have been prevented. Long story short, Alice met this guy from the military who, in the beginning, he appeared to be a good man, but eventually cracks appeared and the man's other lovers warned Alice that he was having multiple relationships at the same time without informing Alice. The women he was cheating with informed Alice, and Alice broke off the relationship. The man became so sad, tried to get her back. When she refused, he began to harass her relatives. She felt she blocked him, went no contact. She filed police reports against the guy. The military was even aware of what's going on. It went so far that one day the guy went to the place Alice lived and killed her with a knife. He slit her throat multiple times and brought multiple bruises to her body. In a fit of rage, he executed her. Now, there are similar cases like this. When an ex-boyfriend or ex-husband kills a wife, sometimes it's a woman that's the perpetrator killing the man. Now, in this case, there is one thing that people don't mention. They mentioned that the police were neglectful. You can agree with that. They mentioned the military was neglectful because, hey, if he's some guy from the military and he misbehaves, he should have been disciplined from the military. That's true. However, think about it. This woman, Alice, went backwards since she met this guy, and she eventually cut off the guy. The guy exploded with harassment, both of her and the people around her. Why didn't any of the people around her take any action? Why was it Alice that had to go to the police and put pressure on the authorities to do something? The guy obviously broke the law multiple times. Still, he was on the street free to keep violating Alice till the day he killed her. Now, understand this. It isn't just the police and the military. It's also the people, the public that failed her. So let me get it straight. The people around you see you get into a relationship with a guy. Some people sense a red flag about the guy, but they don't inform you. When it goes wrong, you even lose some of your friends. You finally cut the guy off, and now the guy begins a tirade of harassment against you. The people are still watching and seeing it all unfold. Why didn't anyone intervene? The conclusion is they wanted something bad to happen to her. Now this may be controversial. When people make those documentaries online, and by the way, I looked further into the case through other sources that were available. So I don't just rely on what was shared in that YouTube documentary. Because documentaries tend to be a bit subjective in how they present the information. What it comes down to is many documentaries, as well as many mainstream media outlets, they give sympathy to the victim, which is understandable. And they want to portray a lovely image of the situation as far as possible, because it's not a lovely thing that happened. And people in the comment section of many of those videos also give a lot of sympathy to the victim and to the relatives of the victim, and they also want to give it a positive twist. I can understand all of that. However, to learn from history, you must face history in its entirety. That means you must also face the ugly parts of history you rather don't want to look at. Truth being told, if the public, the people around, loved Alice, this would have never happened to her. I even doubt if she would have even got involved with that ex-boyfriend to begin with. Truth being told, Alice had no discernment when it came to sexual relationships. She had no discernment when it came to recognizing safe people. She had none. And think about it. If she, at that age, had no discernment, that means that something was lacking in how she was raised. It's not just parents that raise children, it's a community. So something in the community was missing. Because she should have been taught how to recognize healthy and safe people. She could not. That's why she ended up with this nightmare that became fatal onto her. So there was neglect on part of the community. That's one thing. Even before she met this guy that ended up killing her. Why didn't she have any discernment? And where was the discernment of those closest to her? Her friends. And the other people that were close to her. I'm not talking about relatives. Look, it may be, I hope I'm wrong because it's not something fun, but it may be that secretly people were dumping on her. It can be that secretly, because things were going well in her life, that people began to envy her or began to target her. It can be that envy and jealousy played a role in this case. What if people behind her back were murmuring, complaining about her? What if people behind the scenes were conducting psychic violence on her? And what if it's this psychic violence that wounded her? And what if it's that wound or this mark of victimization that attract this perpetrator? Too often, when it comes to tragic events, people don't look at the spiritual aspect of it, because the spiritual aspect made her feel more things that we're not willing to face. What if there was a death wish on her for a while, and it's people meditating on this death wish that caused the situation that she ended up in? That does not excuse the killer that killed her. The killer was trash anyway. However, what caused this man to be so stuck at Alice? There must be some spiritual side to this. What I'm teaching you here is that too often when tragedies happen, we only look at the tragedy, or we look at who's the victim, and we tend to get upset with the perpetrator, and we leave it at that. How come this tragedy happened? And if there was neglect, who neglected here? It isn't just the police, and it's just the military. Where were all those other people? Where were they? But now that the tragedy became fatal, now those same people who were neglectful all the time didn't want to appear in front of the camera. They don't want to be seen. They don't want people to even know that they knew Alice. Well, some do, but those are exceptions. This isn't just about the case of Alice. You see this in many, many cases like this. The public is neglectful, either because they don't want to be bothered, they just want to be quote-unquote left alone, or because they have something against the victim. It seems to me, and I hope I'm wrong, I pray you can prove me wrong, but it seems to me that people hoped that something bad would happen to her because they want to get rid of her. I'm not saying her close relatives. I'm just saying that in general, people had issues against this woman. And it's them having issues against her that contributed to this tragedy. It's amazing when people are scapegoating someone, as long as the individual is alive and wounded, nobody pays attention. If the individual dies suddenly, then those people that scapegoat the individual know that they're guilty. But they don't want people to find out that they're the ones that are guilty. So most of the time, when the victim dies, now they want to redeem their reputation by pretending to be these great people, which they are not. This happens often. Rarely will you find someone who will insist on their anger against the victim after the victim dies. Especially if the victim is a female, a young female. Don't think that all people out there once was best. That's not true. In this case, it's obvious. There was ill will towards her. Not just ill will from the perpetrator that killed her, ill will from the public. So, what can we learn from this? Pay attention to your environment. If your environment is not willing to rejoice with you when things go well, if the environment around you allows people to treat you like crap, if the environment allows minor bad things to happen to you, then you need to get out of that environment. Because the neglect of those people will kill you, either through accidents or to tragedies or to violence. The neglect of the crowd will affect you in a wrong way. So how people think about you does matter, because it's the way they think about you that's going to treat you. And if you have relatives or so-called friends who are neglectful, it's up to you how you do it, but lower contact with them. And if it's one of your parents, stay the heck away from them. Make sure they have no access to you, no information about you. We need to have discernment in this lifetime. Also discernment that we can teach to other people, especially the youth. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ and keep your eyes open.